for me, it basically is my awakening. Realizing the world is pretty screwed up and being pretty upset about it and seeing all these things that are completely backwards and not knowing why, and then seeing who's responsible and getting pretty angry about it, and then realizing that the real change comes from within.
You're listening to the Corbett Report.
Welcome, friends. James Corbett here, 13th of December 2017, and today we are talking to Benny Wills, who you will remember as a previous guest on this program. You can check the interview archives for our previous conversation, or you can get a Laughing at Tyrants DVD, which includes the video version of that conversation that we had with Benny Wills, who you will better know as one of the team behind the conscious comedy group known as JoyCamp. So, Benny, thank you so much for joining us today on the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, James.
Now, I noticed recently that you did a little self-introduction post on Steemit in which you described yourself as an actor turned poet? What on earth is that about? As I say, most people will probably know you as one of the faces on the JoyCamp YouTube channel, a popular channel. If you haven't checked it out for some reason, please do so. We, as we discussed in our previous conversation, obviously doing some incredible conscious comedy work, and more than just that. If you have followed the YouTube channel, you will notice that the production has definitely delved into some other genres. I'm not even sure what to call some of those pieces that you do. They're really thought-provoking pieces that aren't necessarily ha-ha funny, but certainly do make you
Definitely
think. So clearly you've been on this journey, and it's not just about being a comic duo or something with Kevin. I mean, clearly you're doing and exploring all sorts of different things. But now you're talking about poetry? What's going on, Benny?
Wow. Well, I'm an ever-evolving human being. And poetry is just proving to be the coalescence of all my talents. I started writing poetry when I was a kid, and I've always enjoyed doing it, but I never thought it could be anything more than just a hobby. And I don't know, in the last few years, I've been writing more and more, and it's become a really great outlet for me, for my growth and for my understanding of the world, and a way to process similar to the way JoyCamp has been for me. But now it's much more personal, because it's harder and harder for us to all get together to make videos. And writing has just become my preferred outlet. And I started sharing my poetry with people about a year ago, about a year and a half ago, I guess. And it was so warmly received that I've been very encouraged to start sharing more publicly. So more and more I meet people around the world, I share my poetry, and they're always impressed. So I finally have the courage, I guess, to make it public online. And we just released the first one last week, and I got plenty more in store. So I'm excited to keep sharing and excited to see what happens as a result.
Yes, well, speaking of positive responses, I, too, would like to add my hearty congratulations to that piece that you've released. I think it is a brilliant little piece. It's called Bill Lost His Memory. If you haven't seen it yet, please stop this video or this interview and go and watch it, listen to it. It is a really well-done little piece, and I hope this doesn't come across as patronizing, because I genuinely mean this as a compliment. It's almost Dr. Seussian to me. It takes a kind of
the best compliment you can give me.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad that it's received that way, because that's the spirit in which I intended. It is a brilliant little concept, an idea. Then you spin this little story around it with a sort of basic, simple rhyme structure scheme to it. That it's kind of simplistic on that level, but it works as a think piece, and I think it works brilliantly the way that you did that. So again, I hope people will stop whatever they're doing right now and go listen to that. Tell us about this piece in particular. Where did this idea originate?
Well, it originated from a heartbreak, frankly. I wrote it because I was so distraught over a girl who had crushed my heart that I needed an outlet. I needed something to take my mind off it. I was so obsessed with this relationship ending, this brief relationship ending. I needed something to ground me. I was going insane. I was even laughing at myself, like, this is ridiculous. I'm going insane over this girl. So I just started writing, and that's what came out. I had that first line, Bill lost his memory. And from there, it just unraveled. Yeah, it's sort of, I had an idea for a video a few years ago, and I guess this was like the preliminary idea to the poem. I had an idea for a video explaining things to an alien. If an alien were to come down to Earth, how would you explain some of the stuff that that alien would be witnessing on Earth? And the example that I thought of was going to a restaurant and seeing how they take all the leftover food from the restaurant and throw it into garbage cans, then lock them up in these sheds that no one can touch, and they get thrown away into landfills. Meanwhile, there are people starving on the streets and all over the world. How would you explain that to someone as part of, how do you explain that that's a normal part of our society? So that was an idea I had a couple of years ago, and it sort of emerged into this poem. Like, how would you explain to someone who just sort of woke up to this reality and was able to think clearly and use words and process, but just not know what they were experiencing exactly? And so that's where the poem came from. But then someone listened to it and they said to me afterwards, "Oh, this is your story." And I thought about it, and that's exactly right, because for me, it basically is my awakening. Realizing the world is pretty screwed up and being pretty upset about it, and seeing all these things that are completely backwards and not knowing why, and then seeing who's responsible and getting pretty angry about it, and then realizing that the real change comes from within. In order to change the world, I have to change my world. And I didn't really realize that I was putting that into the poem, but when someone reflected it back to me, it made total sense. So I guess it's a bunch of things, but it's my story put into a conversation between two people.
Yeah, and it works. I think it works brilliantly because, again, I think everyone watching this conversation will have some version of that experience in their own past. The kind of, hey, what on earth? Everything I thought I knew isn't real anymore. What's happening? That experience, and I think it brilliantly captures that. So, hats off to you for doing that. Again, I hope people will go give that a view and give it a like and share it around on the social media. I think it's one of those things that'll probably wake a few people up, or at least get them to start questioning some of these things for themselves, which I assume is part of the point. So, is the poetry going to function like JoyCamp in general as kind of a conscious comedy, conscious poetry, conscious activism of some sort, or is it just poetry?
I think so. I mean, when I have an idea of what I want to write, it usually ends up being something different, so I can't really say. I mean, I have been forcing myself to be disciplined with ideas, and if I have a moment where I think, "Oh, I should write a poem about that," actually following through with it and seeing what happens, even if I want to deviate along the way. And it's been going pretty well. So I don't really know what the future holds. I do know that this feels really good, and it feels, like I said, like the coalescence of all of my talents. I mean, I studied theater for 20 years and did Shakespeare primarily. So I'm classically trained. So and I've spent a lot of time on stage, so I know how to perform, I know how to work with an audience, I know how to use words, and I'm pretty smart guy. So I think it all is like gelling in this way that feels great, and people will respond really well. Where it's going to go, I don't know. But there's still going to be JoyCamp videos in addition to the poetry. This is just another way to, use the platform and share myself with people.
So people will be able to find this work on the JoyCamp channel specifically, or are you creating your own outlet?
This is specifically through JoyCamp. Yeah, this is exclusively on JoyCamp YouTube channel and on our Facebook page, which is getting a lot more hits than our YouTube channel these days, for better, for worse.
Whatever.
Yeah, the poem right now has, I think, 40-some thousand views on Facebook in the last week. Meanwhile, it only has about 4,000 on YouTube. So if you're watching this, watch it on YouTube, because we could use that love, and subscribe to JoyCamp if you haven't already, because we could definitely use the support.
Well, we got to get you on BitChute and DTube and other ways to get off of the GooTube Facebook matrix. But
DTube's coming. DTube's definitely coming. But what's interesting about the poetry, last thing I want to say about it, I guess, is, or what I've noticed in the last week, while it's great to have all the shares and the views and the great feedback, I've had people coming out of the woodwork on my of my Facebook friends responding to this poem who don't respond to anything JoyCamp. And that gets me excited because I feel like this has more of a universal message that can reach people, which has been so rewarding to see people that have never commented on anything I've done. In fact, sometimes ridicule me for, whatever, being the conspiracy guy. And they're watching the poem and they're actually able to hear it and they're thanking me for it. And that is the goal, to transcend the lines and to get people to think about things and to realize that we're all on the same team. So that's been so nice. And so therefore, this might be one of the more shareable things JoyCamp has produced.
Yeah.
So
that doesn't surprise me in the least. I mean, I see this as being something that certainly does reach across those kind of boundaries, and this isn't circumscribed by the conspiracy theory label or anything like that. So I think people can actually listen to this in a way that they're not able to listen to other messages, no matter how well produced the other messages were. And JoyCamp has obviously done incredible work on that front in the past. Speaking of which, how about the JoyCamp podcast? I was getting into that, and then suddenly there was no more. People might not have seen that, but I think it was about a year ago. You and Kevin were doing some podcasts.
Yeah, it was exactly a year ago. You were into it. That's a cool thing to know. Yeah, we did basically a 6-week trial run with it, with the intention of picking it back up earlier in the year. But, life, essentially. Kevin works a full-time job. I mean, we don't live together anymore. I mean, when JoyCamp was really at its peak, producing content all the time, we were living together. And we were able to work pretty much every day. And now he lives, about 70 miles away with his wife and works from 9 till 6 every day. And I'm doing my own thing. So we both kind of like branched off and needed to pay bills. So we both have been working and trying to figure things out. And meanwhile, I've been delving into the poetry. But that being said, the podcast is coming back. In fact, we have a plan to meet up either this weekend or the weekend after and record episode 7 of our podcast and bring it back. And then from then on, I'll be point man with it, I guess, and be bringing it back, whether or not he's able to be on it with me. But I definitely want to bring it back and bring that consistency back to our channel, because the feedback for that as well was really good, and I want to keep that going, and it's really fun, and it's a pretty easy thing to produce. So,
and now we just have to get you making RSS feed so that you can actually have a podcast that people can listen to.
Well, that's the thing. That's actually where we stopped. And when we got to like those details, we just didn't follow through. So I'm about to follow through with it, and the podcast will be coming back probably shortly after the new year.
Awesome. Well, speaking of life getting in the way of such things, it would be great if this was your life rather than running around in the hamster wheel trying to make ends meet while doing this on the side.
Dude,
on that note...
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, on that note, how can people support you in this work? What's the best way to do that?
Best way would be through Patreon. Or, since Bitcoin and all the other altcoins and cryptos are exploding right now, we take crypto. I can give you my address, my Bitcoin address. I can give you my Bitcoin address, my Ethereum address, my Litecoin address. I take it all.
What about Dash? What about Monero? What about Bitcoin Cash? What about Dogecoin?
Well, I should have wallets for all of them because there's so many to choose from. But Bitcoin, I can give you my Bitcoin address. Patreon's easy because it's Patreon. PayPal. I mean, there's so many ways. If people want to send me money,
there will be a way.
Very much available. Yeah. It's very much, we make it known on our channel and on our Facebook page how to do it. So, and frankly, I would love to be doing this more often and be living off of that kind of money because I'm tired of the rat race. So if you can help, and I'm also trying to pay off my student loans, which I'm making very transparent now. I've come out of the loan debt closet, and I want to get rid of these loans ASAP. So if anyone can send money, that's really what it's going towards. The content's free, so there's no worries there. But if anyone wants to help me pay off my student loans, that's exactly where the money's going to go towards. And any other ideas about how to eradicate a loan so I don't have to put it in default, because that's what I've sort of been leaning towards. But now I'd rather take it on and do something about it. So if anyone knows any loopholes with how to get out of paying student loans without going into default, all that, let me know. I don't just want to pay it off. I want to eradicate it. So if anyone knows how to eradicate a loan, a student loan, because they're tricky, hey, reach out to me, because I want to get rid of it before my next birthday.
If only Bill had lost his memory before he got suckered into the education industrial complex. Oh, well.
Tell me about it. I know.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know. I wish. If I do it all over again, of course, I wouldn't even gone to college at all. But I did. And all that training, because I have 2 degrees. I have a BA in acting and a master's degree in acting. And all that training, for a while there, I thought I wasted my time. And I was actually really conflicted about how I felt about all of that energy input. But now it's coming back, and it's been coming back with JoyCamp for years, but now it's coming back with the poetry to be helpful in a way I never thought possible. So all of that is helping me in my life now. I just have this pesky debt I'm dealing with. So that's it.
Well, I tend to poo-poo my English degree, but it really does. I mean, it is a part of who I am, and it's what I have made into the website. In a way, again, I never would have thought that my writing and my research and all of that would go into this, but here we are. So you never know what ways things will pay off in the end, and hopefully they will pay off in a way that you can pay off that debt and get rid of that shackle. Once again, I will direct people to the JoyCamp channel. I guess that's probably the best place to go. You're on Facebook. You're on Steemit now. Any other places that you'd like to direct people?
Let's see. I mean, the usual, JoyCamp, it's youtube.com/JoyCamp. And then there's the Facebook page, which is, I think, the JoyCamp. But JoyCamp works as well. If you type in JoyCamp to Facebook. You can friend me directly on Facebook. I'm a very friendly guy. Easy to get a hold of. And I like making new friends. So Benny Wills, if you want to friend me on Facebook. I just shifted my Instagram account to be the JoyCamp Instagram account. So if you're on Instagram, you go to JoyCamp Benny. That's the JoyCamp Instagram. It's also my Instagram. We're also on Twitter at the JoyCamp. And again, we're on Patreon, the JoyCamp. So plenty of ways to reach us, get a hold of me personally, whatever you want. We are available.
Excellent. Well, I'm very much looking forward to seeing some more poetry in some of those productions, so I will be waiting with bated breath, as I'm sure the audience will too. Benny Wills, thank you again for your time. Looking forward to talking to you again in the future.
James, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
The Corbett Report is brought to you by the Corbett Report subscriber. A weekly newsletter featuring James Corbett's International Forecaster editorial, recommended reading and viewing, discounts on Corbett Report DVDs, and once a month, a subscriber-only video. Sign up today to start receiving your copy at corbettreport.com/support.